Blessed good day to all present. Um, this activity today is a inspiration that came to me due to the persons who are going to talk to you by the name of Bovell. I got a text recently and said he was in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and due to how I knew him, got to know him, and the works that I know he has done throughout the world, I thought that something had to happen, no matter the size. So I started to put certain things in place. Then I could not go along without contacting a brother by the name of Cleve Scott, because once he doing anything, he gonna run it through me. So I thought it was the best way, and the activity I'm trying to get involved with, he is versed in that. So I linked him and he gave me certain ideas. And that is why we're in this historic building. And I think there was no other place right now in St. Vincent that this activity should have been held. So I thank Cleve for the suggestion and so on. Well, yeah, this activity again is because of how I got to know Bovell through a musician called Hadrix Lynch. What is his first name? I can't remember right now. So I got to know Bovell through Lynch, Hadrix, a real guitar player, and he is deceased now. Plenty of the artwork you saw outside on the wheels, he does his works. These are his works, you know, the basket. So it was important, as I said, to have a gathering. So here we are, as I welcome Bovell and his wife, because his wife is Vincentian, and they were on holiday, so you couldn't try to take away the time, because I was told Bovell needed some rest. So the fact that he's on the holiday, you can't tap in too much to his time. So, but we were able to go at Basil Bar on Sunday night. They were having some jazz, and he listened some, well, Caribbean, because they had Cuban, Vinci, different persons playing. So here we are, and as I said, I welcome all present, all who listening in the global sphere. I will just ask Cleve to give that general overview of Bovell, and then Bovell will give some remarks and we give some discussion, and also producer on the album. So again, thought that you have to salute this man. So we have a little token we're gonna like to hand over to him. Maybe due to the timing, we might do some of that earlier, because Vani has to run, and the long time that Vani had known him, I think Vani is a good person to be able to do that presentation. Eh? Okay. There we go. So we're gonna let Vani do that right now. So Vani, come, I hand it over to you, and then you hand it over to Bovell.
What an absolute honor.
Well, we have it in the bag for us, and then I can take it out. Yeah?
gotta go close to them like that.
Okay.
We online.
Okay, sir.
I think I'm not going.
Is there so many things you have to do one time? Yeah. So this one this plaque to be handing up. Okay. This is what we want to hand over to Bovell. So Vani will hand it over.
Wow.
So Bovell,
I mean, this is really such an honor. And this is such an unexpected honor to present you with this token of appreciation on behalf of Vincentian creatives, musicians.
Oh.
It's a particularly memorable time for me because I can't even count the number of years since I've known you and met you as a young person in my 20s. And what an inspiration you have been to me as an artist, witnessing you working in a studio with various other artists, and your immense and inspirational creativity, your amazing way of communicating with everyone and being a foundation in what is otherwise a very sort of can be a turbulent environment. Dennis was always a rock, a foundation, and a mentor to so many. And words can't express my deep respect and admiration for your work. And on behalf of also the next generation, my children have both been inspired, especially Marlon, by your amazing inroads and being on the frontier of the reggae music business for so long. So much respect, my brother, and love.
I'm happy to accept it as a marker of what I've been doing for the last 50 years in the music business in London, and all the many people I've met. I mean, today when Vonnie turned up, I had to think hard, but then I came out with her name just to prove that Alzheimer's had not yet set in. And it's been over 40 years since we've seen each other, but a joy to meet you again, Ronnie, and for you to present me with this. I mean, the culprit is Mr. Liverpool, because he had been a very close friend of Hadrick Lynch, and we met that way. And my father-in-law, who lived in Cyan Hill, Sunny Bibi at the Three B's bar opposite the Banyard, was a man who first brought me to this magical place to see the breadfruit tree that Captain Bligh brought to St. Vincent. So I'm very happy to be here in these surroundings and to receive this honorable plaque. I'm sure my wife is going to find a place on the wall for this, and I won't be allowed to touch it anymore. It will become family property. So thank you very much. Yeah, my first trip to St. Vincent, I told and he said, "Oh yeah, I want to introduce you to a heavy musician." And he had this man who lived behind his house in another little house, and that man was Hadrick Lynch. And I had many, many conversations about music with him. But at that time, I had been staying in a place called Sandy Bay, and my young son was a few months old, not even yet a year old, and I was by the beach, and there were two men conversation, and one of them said to the other, "I wonder what ever happened to Sheikh Keane." And I couldn't believe I was hearing this. So I butted into the gentleman's conversation and said, "Gentlemen, I'm not eavesdropping, but the man you just mentioned, Sheikh Keane, I've just completed an album with him in London with my friend, the poet Linton Kwesi Johnson." And Linton had been a huge fan of Sheikh Keane and decided that we should do an album called Reggae into Jazz, because the Sheikh was, a mighty trumpet player. And in fact, my father-in-law's brother told me that he had taught him at school here in St. Vincent. So it was a deep honor to have made this album and then to met two gentlemen who, I didn't know them, they didn't know me, but overhear them talking about him. And I was able to bring news of him because they were wondering what had happened to him. And I was able to say, "I've just made an album with that man." And that album, we had lots of TV on it. The BBC TV did a show called Arena, which featured Sheikh Keane. And when I heard that he was to be honored here, I thought, I've got to be there, because the Sheikh and I, we saw eye to eye musically, because he was a tremendous jazzer. And, I knew a bit about jazz because my father had an extensive jazz collection, and some of it Sheikh had played on, when he was in a group in the early days in the UK, before he went to Germany, and all that. Then he was back now after having been, I think I'm correct in saying that he was once attached to the ministry. The cultural director of St. Vincent. Yes, thank you. And so, I felt close to him, being that my wife's family are all Vincentian, and me coming from Barbados, I thought, if they accept me, I'll be okay. So, yeah, I'm very honored to be here in St. Vincent, remembering the spirit of Sheikh and thinking about, while we were composing the songs for that album, which was released on a CD, and I'd sent some copies to my father-in-law in Sion Hill, but he said that they had been, what's the word he used? They had been sequestered in in transit. Some official people said, "What are you doing with these? We should have these CDs, not you," and took them away from him. He was most upset about it. And sadly, he passed before I could send him some more. But Linton Kwesi Johnson, the poet, who was the person instrumental in inviting me to work with Sheikh, he has at home in his house lots of copies of the Sheikh Keane record that we made, and I think Mr. Gonzalez had a conversation with him recently about him coming to St. Vincent. I don't know what the decision has been, but I'm sure he will soon be here, because I told him you've got to accept that. You know, if Mr. Gonzalez says to you, come to St. Vincent, you got to go. If he said to me, I'll be there before you put the phone down. Anyway, I'm very happy to be in St. Vincent. The nice, fresh air, you know, sea bath every morning, and just remembering things that Sheikh and I used to talk about the Caribbean and the wonders of being in the tropics, you know, because he'd spent many years in Europe. I was taken to Europe at the age of 12 years old, and I'm finding it hard to speak to my dad now because he was the person who brought me there and then returned to Barbados and leaving me there. But I'm very glad in the respect that the many friends I met. I mean, Vonnie, when she was in her 20s, and I was in my 20s too, we were very young, and I was the producer at Ridge Farm Studios, where I produced groups like the Pop Group, the Slits, Matumbi, and Marie Pierre, solo singer, you know, and I was at Ridge Farm for about 9 months without going back to London, and it's in a place called Horsham, and my wife would drive down from time to time just to check that I was still alive. So yeah, to the powers, I would say, Sheikh, rest in peace. Hadrix, rest in peace. We'll see you on the other side.
Well, yes, we had to do some changing up there. So now we'd like to thank Vonnie for being able to do that for us. And as she said, she might have to move soon, so at least we got that part of business out of the way. Now, I will ask Cleve to come to the podium. Now, Cleve and I, we rumbled in the National Youth Council for years, and then after that, we work on different things. As I say, if he has something he's doing and he think, boy, Andrew might fit in, he call me, and likewise. So again, thanks again, Cleve. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Andre. We are on Facebook and on YouTube. We're live. So there are certain things I will explain for the sake of the audience who are not familiar. I am a historian, but before being a historian, I've always been a musician. I'm a member of the band Touch. I have Willis Williams with me here. And we thank Nice Radio, Dougie the Freitas, who has helped us with this thing. Black Sun, we also thank Touch, who has helped us. These equipment we have here this morning at Touch, and we thank Jules Williams from VFM for his support. I need to underline that because, you know, we just leave thank you for last. I don't believe in thank you for last because I just forget. I like to do thank yous first. Now, if you look behind you, you'll see a still image from a video. That's, let me see who knows that. Who is that? Not you, you wouldn't know. Let me see if Koja knows that. Yeah.
Lord Kitchener.
Right, that's Lord Kitchener. Yes, and of course, Dennis, you know the year.
Depends on what song you were singing.
Yeah, that's 1948, June 1940.
Windrush Boat.
Yeah, that's right, the Windrush Boat. And for those of you who like numbers and so on, Shakin Dai was born, 30th of May. I was born in May.
Me too.
You born in May? Okay, the stars align, Dennis.
22nd May.
Okay, So 1948, and 1948 is what produces a Dennis Bovell in London. Because after 1948, thousands and thousands of West Indians, people from the Caribbean, went to England. And in this song, Kitchener sings "London is the place for me." A year or so later, he sings "Sweet Jamaica," "I regret the day I left Jamaica." And people always think he's singing about Jamaica. And I had to explain to them, Jamaica is a metaphor for the Caribbean, because in England at the time, I'm sure they call you Jamaican Dennis.
Yeah, listen, in Africa, sometimes people ask me, where are you from? And I say Barbados, and they say, what part of Jamaica is that? Or some people say, we thought it was a fairy tale. Does it really exist? Barbados. I mean, because there are a lot of the people around the world that are ignorant of the history of the Caribbean, and, you know, as I say, ignorant of the diaspora and what we went through and still going through in this part of the world, you know. And I personally have been instrumental in telling people that I'm from Barbados. In fact, I boasted of being the only Bajan that the most of the world knew before Riri came along.
That's a fact. That's a fact. That's a fact. So the Dennis Bovell phenomena begins with this. And I'm going to take you to the next thing. As I said, I'm a scholar, and I am also a music scholar. Some of you would know Mike Allen, Professor Mike Allen. He's a Barbadian who was a radio announcer, became an academic musician as well. And he's one of the leading experts on reggae music. And one of the things that Professor Ali, along with myself, always try to get people to understand is that when you talk about reggae music, it is not simply Jamaicans. And my first lesson about this was with Sata Masagana. You all know, Koja, you know that song? Yeah. You would sing it, you would hum it for the people? Yeah. Come now, man, because we're online, you know, we're online, so people have to hear. Yeah. Yeah, no, not even the young Dennis could do it. Let me go. Two, Willis. One more time.
There is a land far, far away, where there's no night, there's only day. If you look into the book of notes, you will see there is a land far, far away.
And that's the theme song for Shake Up and Wake Up. Pa, pa, pa. Right? Now, the trombone player on that, you know where he's from, Koja? No. That trombone player is from Trinidad and Tobago. We'll say you a back man.
He was a friend of Lynn Tate, guitar player, who is also from Trinidad.
There you go. There you go. Now that trombone player, his name is Jerome Francis. And he was the engineer in the studio for Touch in 1988 and 1999. He's the man who taught me professional recording. I've been doing professional recording since, but at a lower level. But when you go to Trinidad, you're going to bigger studio, Jerome Francis. And he, when I asked him, you know, tell me about you, and he tell me, man, I play trombone, and you know, he didn't want to talk, so you know me already. Young fella harassed him, and he admitted. And I went and I researched and I found the record, and his name is on it, right? So Dennis is saying there's a guitarist also. Repeat it.
Tate, Trinidadian guitarist who was at the forefront of what they call rock steady. When the music moved from ska to rock steady, Lynn Tate had came with this picking style, rolling the pick, you know, following the bass line, and it became a factor of rocksteady.
And that rolling the bass line is what we call a major motif in reggae. If you want to do a reggae song, I don't know, what you start with then? Is you start with the bass or the guitar?
I think the bass, but then the guitar has to underline the bass, like in the same way as in an orchestra, you have cello, you have violin, you have contrabass. Now the cellos will usually play the same thing as the contrabass in a different register. I mean, in a different octave.
Yeah, octave, yeah. Uh-huh.
So reggae took that on because that would be justifying two guitars instead of one. You know, where one was doing the rhythm, chink, 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 and then the other one playing with the bass, go boom, 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 you know, yeah, just underlining of the bass line.
Yeah, what's the name again? Is he British? No, he's British. Trying to remember his name. Oh, sorry. No, it's an artist who was based in England as well and still pop in the Caribbean. UB40. UB40 is what I'm thinking about. That they really
That group,
yeah, they really accentuated, right? That style of guitar.
Well, no, they accentuated reggae that they liked that was now considered defunct, and they brought songs back to life, like Red Red Wine. Now that had been done in reggae before, and they brought it back, did another version of it, but what they hadn't realized.
But Red Red Wine is it Glenn Campbell or
No.
Neil Diamond?
Neil Diamond.
Neil Diamond, yes. Thank you, Brian Alexander. Good morning. Brian Alexander is the leader of our band Touch. He couldn't make it, but he's listening. Go ahead.
Okay, Neil Diamond, you know, and in the early days, a lot of reggae songs were just copies of tunes from either England or America or even Africa, you know, and those tended to be the most popular because people already knew or had an inkling of the melody. But when we started to do a form of reggae in the UK called Lovers Rock,
Hold. You use the word form. You know, today everything they call a genre. So why do you call it a form? Why you don't call it a style? Why you don't call it a subgenre or genre?
well, it's all of those things, but it's a style of reggae that has now become, you know, coming to its own as a genre. But the title, Lovers Rock, first featured on an instrumental song by the melodica player, Augustus Pablo. He had an instrumental song, and the title of that song was Lovers Rock. So when the English of my generation began to study and record and release our own brand of reggae, looking for a name for it, the name Lovers Rock was, you know, was suggested because that's how the DJs in the dance would differentiate between a lover's style tune from Jamaica by Gregory Isaacs or Dennis Brown or any one of those, John Holt, lovers, they sang love songs in reggae. But it wasn't called Lovers Rock until we got on board and were looking for an identity for what we were doing. And mostly our lead singers had been female because reggae was heavily saturated with male performers. And you know, there were a lot of men in reggae, and it was going biblical too, and it was going Rasta. And I, for one, thought that we needed a kind of artist like Aretha Franklin, dare I say, or like Diana Ross, or Gladys Knight.
And for the sake of the audience around, what year you're talking about? Because that sounds like beautiful exuberance to me.
I'm talking about in the 70s, round about 1977.
Yes, mid 70s, yeah.
77. Because that was when reggae that my generation made in the UK became popular. And how it was done was, there was a sound system by the name of Sir Coxsone. Now, this sound system was the most popular of all the sound systems. And it was always referred to as the sound system. Now, the guy who ran that sound system was a neighbor of mine, and then, we went to the same church as boys.
On Sunday, can't be on Sunday morning, so
No,
after the fete on Saturday night.
That was the Seventh Day Adventist.
Oh, okay, so you get to go on fete Saturday night.
Yeah. So he had a motto that he perfected all over to say that he never played English reggae. It's like, I only play strictly dub and pre-release from Jamaica. Okay. Well, I had a sound system that used to play anything that I made.
And for the sake of the audience, London is a big place. What are we talking about? Brixton,
we're talking about
Central London?
South London, Brixton, Battersea, around that area. And so one day, it was suggested that I have a sound clash with Coxsone. My sound was called Sufferer. And Coxsone said to me, nah, he said, I've been building my name as Sir Coxsone for decades now. I'm not going to come and gamble my crown in a dance with you, because he knew that I, was quite fierce and up and coming youth that had music. And most of it I made myself and had made it popular, and people knew my songs through the sound system. So his suggestion to me was, let's meet in the recording studio, because I was also known as a sound engineer in the recording studio and recording, I would say, 80% of the reggae that was recorded by my generation in the UK. So his sound was famous for a song by a singer called Robert Parker, an American singer, an R&B tune, and this tune was called Caught You in a Lie. And that would be the first song he would play on his sound system once it was set up correct and, testing the equipment. He would play that song because it was rare. He seemed to be one of two sound systems that had a copy of that record, Caught You in a Lie by Robert Parker. And so he thought the next step from having a sound system was to become a record producer. In the same way that in Jamaica, Drew Creed, was a sound system man, and then he became a record company producer, owner, and Coxsone Dodd, the same with Studio One label. So emulating the temperature of Jamaica and the movement, sound systems in England, like Count Shelley, decided he was going to build a huge record store and call it Third World Music. And until this day, it just became a Costa coffee shop. And it was like a huge place, the biggest reggae record store in the UK. And he had become a producer, meaning that he was finding work for musicians in the UK and making his own style of reggae. So Lloyd Coxsone wanted to do the same thing. He then got in touch with me to go into the studio with him to do a reggae version of Caught You in a Lie. So when that was finished and he was playing it on his sound system, people believed it was made in Jamaica because of his motto of I don't play English music. But there he was, humble pie, and he was playing a song that he was involved in the
Production of,
it.
yes.
And I was the main musician, because I ended up playing all the instruments except for the drums on that song. And then by the popularity of it, it became very popular all over the UK. And this was really, for my generation, the first recorded reggae in the UK that had risen above Jamaican produced reggae. And from there on, I knew that the formula would work for having girl reggae, because there were a lot of young ladies who sang but were timid and were usually relegated to
Back
the
vocals.
chorus line.
Yeah, back vocals, yeah.
Backing vocals.
Like the I3s.
Correct. Although Marcia Griffiths in herself had a formidable career, because before she sang with Bob Marley in I3, her and her husband, Bob and Marcia, and Bob Andy had a hit in the UK, #1 in the charts, with a version of Young, Gifted and Black. I think the original of that song was by Nina Simone.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
the trend was to take an American song, do a reggae version, and you're more than likely to be successful.
Yeah, that was a model during that period.
Right, so
Yeah.
I wanted to break that mold
Yes.
and write songs that could have been written by anyone, Elton John, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. I wrote, for instance, a song called City Games, and I wrote it like a pop song. So it had lots of changes, not just your average 2 chords, rotating. Reggae tunes do it. Soca tunes do it. It's called minimalism. But I
Yeah, that's it, Tom. And Willis is laughing. Willis is a arranger producer. Later on he might ask you what this.
It was a bit minimal.
Yeah,
So
but I want to take you a bit more on the line of genre, because in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, this term raga has become popular, and people are insisting that we invented raga soca. And I told them the first place in my life I ever heard the word raga was in England, in London. We were visiting this family, and this young girl came up. They told her I was a musician, and she asked me, "Do you play raga?" And I, what? I have never heard the word.
Well,
So,
we're there to know.
so what is your recollection of this origin of raga, as whether you call it a style or subgenre and so on? What do you know about raga in England?
Well, I know that when I was a young boy, if I walked around with my shirt outside my pants, my grandmother would say to me, "Boy, you're too ragamuffin." Right? So raga is coming from the word ragamuffin, which is a term that has been used for vagrants, for, in some instances, people who grow their hair in the Rastafari tradition, people who are frequently improperly dressed, So this music being what it was, because the beat shifted from just the third beat of the 4, dun, 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 dun. So it became more urgent, and it became more dance hall, because that was what the people in the dance hall wanted to hear. And in England, they like to name things and put everything in its box. So that became ragamuffin, but shortened to raga. You know, it's not a genre, it's another style. Because the genre has to be reggae, you know, but the style, or if you want to divide reggae into genres.
So if you were to date raga in England, around what time would you say?
80s.
80s.
Yeah.
Which is what I recollect in England, 80s. Young girls come up to me.
Yeah.
And I had never heard the word, and I had been all across the region. And I was already in the music industry. In fact, it was a tour with Touch in England when that happened. We went to a barbecue. And that was Lewis. What Lewis' first name again? Willis. Lewis, who was here, the furniture man, he went back to England.
Oh,
Alvin Lewis, yeah,
Alvin.
yeah. I like to give people the tribute. Alvin Lewis. Yeah. Yeah, he's between back and so on between. Right? Good. Now, you made a point, and I don't think people understand the significance. I want to go back to it. You said you produce about 80% of the reggae music in England at the time. Recorded, involved. And I know we have the old generation of engineers. If you're doing something wrong, we are going to tell you you're doing. We're not going to. Am I correct? You're not going to press record.
No, that's true. The thing is that once everything is set and the musicians are comfortable and they've got the vibe, record.
Exactly. Because sometimes I made this point in relation to Jackie Opel and Bob Marley and the Wailers. The Wailers backed Jackie Opel and at least one or two early recordings in Jamaica. And I made that point. I said if the Wailers are backing Jackie Opel must be communicating backward and forth. So they would be influenced backward and forth. I might come into your studio, right? And I come with something different. And you like it, you never heard it.
True.
Okay?
And then in fact, I remember an interview with Bob Marley where he had admitted that he was a Jackie Opel fan.
With Marley?
Yeah. He said that he had hoped to become as popular as Jackie Opel, you know, because he was a Jackie Opel fan. Jackie Opel was quite a dynamic performer, you know. Unfortunately, he left us at the early age of 27 in the 60s, you know. Who knows? In fact, I was able to find Jackie Opel's music with the group The Scatolites on release in Japan at the beginning of the CD era. There's a label called Alpha Enterprise, and they you know, are marketing Jackie Opel and the Satellites. In fact, when I got a copy of that CD, I was working at the time with Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare, and I was showing it off. And Robbie Shakespeare said to me, "Where you get that from?" And I said, "Japan, what, baby, no." So I thought, okay, Robbie, for you. I gave it to him, and that was the first time he'd seen Jackie Opel on CD. When I went back to Japan, I begged another one from the company, and when I came back to London, my friend Cedric Lynch at the Barbados Tourism Authority was knocked out that I had a CD of Jackie Opel, and he begged to borrow it. So I lent it to him, and then sometime later he said to me, "Ma, you can't copy it." And that was when I realized that the Japanese had come with a system where you could not copy one CD to another.
Yes, yes.
You know, and that was one of the first albums that had that prohibition on it, you know. So I said to him, you better give me it back.
So he could
Because
do
you
it.
can't copy it, but I know how.
Yeah, that is true. You're an engineer. All right. Well, we could take some questions from the audience, and I want you to come and interrogate a little bit about the chord structures, because that's something we debate all the time,
Yeah.
and so on.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah.
And it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure meeting you, meeting a man who worked with Shakin, one of my idols, a man who knows, what's his name, Jerome. And these are all the people. And I never really realized that we were working with greats. I mean, I knew they were great musicians, but I didn't know that. I didn't know the mark they had left
Yes.
before they became available to us,
Yeah.
young musicians. And it's still a pleasure. I'm not as young as I used to be, but I'm still learning and I'm still hearing things from you. What is interesting is your description of the minimalist to God's structure thing. And I don't want to speak about it disparagingly, but you know, sometimes as a musician you get a little frustrated that there's no variety, and there's no elaboration. They're not exploring all the possibilities of that music allows.
Yeah.
Of course, they are very nice and sweet. 2 chord and even 1 chord.
The jam,
One chord, nice jam and so on. Sometimes, but as a trained musician who probably grew up in the classics and so on.
Yeah.
You want something to show off with.
Yeah, or you want something to sharpen your wits again.
Yes. So it's really a pleasure. What instrument you really played?
Well, at the age of 10, I began playing guitar. Later on, when I moved to London, at school, the school had an orchestra. So when they chose which instrument a boy would play, by his size, and because I was one of the tall ones, they said, you contrabass. And they bring it and put it on my shoulder. And all the other boys were too short, it was over their head. But when you put this contrabass on me,
Yes.
and he said, that's your thing. So I said, all right, I will play that, because what it was that in the 50s and 60s, my family were known as the Walker Brothers Quartet, singing in the Adventist church, right? And I always liked to sing bass. Like when we're in church, I sing in the bass part, and my grandmother played the organ, and she had a terrible deep voice when she sang bass part, like, come on. And I guess because she was very dear to me, I kind of, appreciated the bass tones. So I played bass in the school orchestra until I was found out that my sight reading was not up to scratch. I could go home with the music, learn my part completely from top to bottom by heart. And then when we're playing in the orchestra, I play my part, right? But one day, I was in a music lesson, and outside of the window, some boys were playing rugby. Now, I used to play rugby too, so I was torn between playing the bass for the teacher and watching the rugby match. So I had one eye on each, and then the teacher said, stop. I wanted to play from line 34 bar 5.
Yeah.
I got to my head, I said, boy, where's that? Where's that? He said, I got you. I said, what do you mean you got me? He said, you are playing from memory. I said, how you know? He said, you're watching rugby match outside while you're repeating your homework. You went home and learned the homework, and now you're coming back to perform it, you know, with style, and you're looking away, and you're not watching the dots. I said, boy, I gave him myself. He said, you are not orchestral material. He said, I wish my memory was as good as yours, but you are not orchestral material because if the conductor stopped the orchestra and said, we're going to play from here, you won't know where the hell you are. Although you know the piece.
Yes.
You know, so I had to agree. So I said, well, I'm going and play electric guitar in a rock band. Right? They had no conductor. Right? It only had a driver and a driving the car.
Yeah.
So I joined a group of 3 white boys, my age, 13 years old, that wanted a 4th member. And they wanted preferably a black person, right? So I went and show off because my guitar skills were a little bit higher than theirs. So I started to show them even how to play.
You've been playing guitar since you're 10?
Yeah. And now I'm 13, so I was nearly a professional, you know. And the fellas said, okay, we're going to play. And the group was called Roadworks Ahead. So you know when you're going and they're having roadworks in the road, they have some sign, Roadworks Ahead. Well, we helped ourselves to a couple of those to enhance performance at school, in the school assembly.
Yes.
The headmaster was horrified. He said, good Lord, where did you get those? And we said, well, we borrowed them, take them back immediately, which ruined our stage props. But we still went and played the tunes, and the boys still enjoyed it, you know. Well, after a year or so, the guitar player, one of the other guitar players, this was a group without any keyboards. It was just guitars, like, you know, Beatles, Rolling Stones, guitar-oriented bands. So we did that, and one of the guitarists decided he was going to leave school at 14. Now, in those days, you could leave school as you turned 14, you know. So he left and went to work for a music publisher. Now, that music publisher was called Robert Stigwood, and he was the manager and the label that controlled Lulu and the Bee Gees when the Bee Gees first came out. So he went to work there. Then the bass player said, I'm going to work in music business too. He went to work as a sound engineer for a recording studio called Olympic. And they were recording a lot of pop hits from the charts. So that left me now without 2 members of this band. So I had to form a new band. This time I'm forming a band with a keyboard player. As I had a white fella who could play classics, and in fact, another school friend said to me, your band needs a keyboard player, boy. You're all playing full air with guitars. You know the new thing is keyboard, you have to have a piano or organ or something. He said, Nick, this is a friend of mine, could play piano real good. I said, yeah, come. Then we go in the music room. There were 2 pianos in there. We could have a jam. Because I was fortunate enough that my younger sister was having piano lessons. So when she went to the teacher and came back home, I would ask her, what you learn? What you was playing? And she would play it. And then I would mimic her, parrot fashion.
Yes.
So that's how I learned my way around the keyboards. around drums now, I always had a passion for drums. And the fact that he was using both hands, both feet, and making the beat. And my older cousin was a drummer in a band in Barbados. The members of the band was from the Fanti family, which young Rihanna is a member of that family. And that group in 1965, 66 was called the Chisels. They never left Barbados. They played only in hotels and things, but boy, they could play. And I'm not surprised that Riri has become a member of that family, musical family, that has made it internationally. Right, so because of my love for drums, and my older cousin played drums in that band, I used to steal a little piece now and again with some ideas, drums. And I thought I'd become quite a good drummer, enough to play drums, bass, guitar, and keyboards on my own songs. So I became a multi-instrumentalist on my thing. I wasn't playing no Tchaikovsky and no Chopin and all of that. I was playing bovell, right? So I make up my little rhythms and things, and because I want to show off my knowledge of chords. So I'm not just playing two chords, ten. I'm going like if I Stevie Wonder, chords. And he can't say, I'm going like if I'm Ray Charles, chords, And that was the thing that was my insight into writing this song, Silly Games. Because I wanted to start writing songs on the piano. Because if you know those instruments, there are certain tones that you could play on the piano that you can't get that on guitar. Yeah. Guitar is quite limiting, and the octaves on the piano, and the way you could press 5 or 10 notes at the same time and make a sweet chord, and I had seen my grandmother and my grandfather playing gospel music. I know gospel music ain't no one chord thing. You have to know chords. So that was my, reason behind writing music with many chords, so that I don't get bored.
That's the idea. So you don't get bored. There's always something new. I like a song that every time I listen to it, over the years, I hear something else.
Yeah.
I hear something new.
It's like watching an old movie and saying, I can see that part.
And again, it depends on the song system you listen to it. It has to do with the engineering. Yeah. Some things are hidden on certain song systems.
That's true.
I love to listen to the same thing on different song systems. Different things are revealed at different
points. I have a new album coming out shortly, and one of the songs that I recorded on there, it's an old song that I liked in the 60s, an old pop song. And I always thought the song was called Hold Your Head Up. And it is called Hold Your Head Up. But there's one word that is blotted out by the music, and that is woman. The song is Hold Your Head Up, woman. But when you sing woman, you know, and you don't really hear that word. Yes. So I met the author. Said, you know what that song, the title of that song, I said, Hold Your Head Up, woman. I said, I never hear woman. When I went back and listened back to the tune, I said, all them years, I didn't know that word was hidden by the music. Yeah. Yes. So I decided to make a version of it where the word woman
comes out.
Yeah.
But you tell me all about your grandmother and your cousins and so on. You're destined for this thing. You could hardly escape being a musician.
I agree, because the joke is, my father wanted to become a musician. My grandfather was a musician.
Yes.
So my father went to my grandfather to learn music. But while he was there, his eyes set on my mom. And I was the first production.
Ah.
So I said, it's music make me.
You know, some people say it's rudeness.
No, well,
It's not
it
rudeness.
has to be music because if he
It's
didn't
music.
go,
It's music.
if he didn't go to my mother's father's house to learn music, I don't know if the two of them would have ever met.
Yes.
And me be the first production.
No, I like how you put it. It's music make me.
Yeah.
You
Yeah, man.
Well, I am not going to have everything. It's a pleasure
Thank
meeting
you.
you. There's a lot to say, a lot to learn, and maybe
True.
some other time we'll get to talk.
Please.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah. There are two things I will listen tell you. The first one is when you said you peeped out the window to watch rugby and played by memory. He had the same experience. He went to music school and couldn't read anything. Well, refused to read because his memory is impeccable.
Yeah.
And most of the greats I know, they like both you and Willis. And like you, he played multiple instruments. And the hidden things is an experience he has because there's a song that is perhaps the most famous song from us touch. It's called Taken Away Somebody Woman.
Mm-hmm.
And he came up with a vocal part and told me to get somebody to sing it. And I tricked him and recorded it.
Uh-huh.
And hid it. And everybody says, that part, it's so nice. Why you didn't bring it up? Who sang it? And when I tell them this, Willis, they could never believe. So everything you said there. Okay, we have some more questions. Koja, first question from you.
Well, I just like to,
Koja, remember we're online, so we go. Yeah. Yeah, you're good there.
I got a message from you all I didn't know what I was saying there. I mean, I wanted to replace that was Vincent Chan,
Mm-hmm.
and we from so
African.
yes, so well, you say a lot of interesting things, so I didn't really have any questions,
Well, Koja he mixes calypso soca with reggae. Come give a little bit of Carnival Sunday, I want them, Koja. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Pami, go across my Koja.
Well, because we thinking that is just a while ago, and Santo, singing all kind of things. Carnival Sunday.
Yeah, anyone you want. Just so you understand the difference, how you approach it different.
What the yard not recognize and clean. Because I read and the leaves them green. So we the king and who will be the queen. Who gonna play the biggest thing? Carnival Sunday, Sunday afternoon. The wind is blowing more than a typhoon. Carnival Sunday, Sunday afternoon. Yeah, so that was like a 1993 song. We have from what was made in 1988. 1993, and then another song, so I decided to sing that. But I was telling the story, when I went into the tent to rehearse it, and I sang the word typhoon. Somebody, echelon in the tent was kind of like questioning my vocabulary, and then, and they want me to sing about typhoon, but they feel it was going to be too disastrous. So I switched the script, lyrics and saying, Carnival Sunday afternoon, we go be drinking strong on my own. Carnival Sunday afternoon. And that was a big hit in 1993. So they are Soca Muracan Zone.
Yeah.
And that was like announcing. Mama tune this year named Rutical, right? So saying that it's topical and thing, I take a clip on it and take a tip. Stick to your roots, and that's it. Go to hell, really, evil spell. Go to hell, really, evil spell. One day sun shining, everything gel. All eyes are already hell, protected by the angel. Make me illegal hell. Stick to your roots, that is the truth. Put on my mama's coffee boots, pick up my banjo, pick up my flute. Calypsonian rock, salute. Plant, no trap to do the fruit. God prophetic, no dispute. Dignitary beyond repute. One is bitten, and that is why. That is why I am shy. It is forbidden to tell a lie. That is the creed, you have to comply. God are free, you can't deny. Even though he could die. On Papa Pool, you can rely for something every July.
Alright, and that's Koja. And there's one credit I always give to Koja. You said your father went to music lesson and got a wife. I took Koja to the library and he showed me my wife. So my wife is a Bajan.
Okay.
Yeah. And I give Koja that all the time. I carry me study showing books. He said, look, that girl over there, she watching you. Yeah, thank you, Koja.
There's a Britain bar with many advocates. So, but then they don't tell you what I mean, please, good connection. Yeah, you might get into all things afterwards, that's so, yeah, right, and then you think you're over it again.
Thank you, Koja. Juana, do you have any questions? No? Andre is only, but before that, I have to thank Madam Bovell for giving you permission to get out the house.
She bring me here.
Yeah. And not only that, for thieving you. Beige Barbara does thief me, so she thief you back. So we equal. Exchange of robbery.
I want to about the 2 card and the 3 card because when mom struck between them really guys very love. And even flames, the 3 card and the missing the 5 card is more or less. But then even a lot of notes, them and practicing the bass, plenty skills. So even though it's cheap, stamp card.
Bass going everywhere.
And some way called decoration inside. For instance, the other white lady called Carol, she had to come to stop. She had to learn that from. When they set up the whole structure, the bell like inside, you take up the flute and carry that inside and decoration. She took on the 3 cards. I have to do with a lot of skills.
Yes.
Yeah, because the morning, you follow her. And even look some of the very good music. It's a pretty great guy. But it's the coloration, as they say.
Around the chords, yes.
Yeah, which will have to be really skilled then. So to be relative and to harmonize, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the point I want to do.
Yeah, come late, we don't do Sata Masagana, man. I wanted you for Sata. But we go do Sata one more time, collectively, and then Andre go wrap up. Let me go, Kwame.
We will have it.
Come, Coach, you go leave me.
Abasena.
I don't like it. I think I'm told what to do.
Yeah, third world did over.
Yeah.
Well, Coach Jack, don't move Andrea. I'm glad this is sound check because I engineer in St. Vincent almost every show for 25 years. And when the reggae bands come and they call Sata, the manager, the band leader asks, where in Jamaica you from? They say, oh, you know this? I say, well, you know, yeah. So most reggae band, yeah, do it for the sound check or the first song. And this is just for the song for the people on the online who listen. Back to Andrew.
Well, as we're about to wrap up and in speaking to Bovell, as he mentioned earlier on, he has an album coming out. So while in the discussion now, he was telling me now one of the things he wants to do in the way going forward is in some tunes that have guitar, he wants to put in the pan because as we know, pan is related to us in the Caribbean. So listening that, I thought, well, boy, that really sound great because we have our own great young panelists coming up because you was telling me about this Trinidad brother who's about 40 and he is bad.
Well, I have to interrupt there. I was telling you that the kid was from Trinidad. 3 or 4 days ago, I was at the beach, me and my wife having a sea bath. There was a lady there and her husband that we began to converse. The lady was a Vincentian of 2 nationalities. She was Vincentian with Portuguese mix. And the husband is a Trinidadian. We got talking about music. The woman said her young son, Dougie, was a great pan player. And he better. So I said, wait you say, Dougie? She said, yes, my son. So I said, madam, I was just working with your son in London because you see them 2 pan tune. It's her son play the pan and that I would come here and meet her in St. Vincent and she is Vincentian, right? And the father is Trinidadian. No, I always thought that he was a Trinidadian, but I find out that he's part Vincentian. And so when I went back in, I would text him to say, I just meet your mother on the beach. He said, boy, he said only you could bring them kind of magic there.
Wow. who we had to get here from National Trust, the lady who usually organize lottery. It's just, as I say, thanks that it came off. Cleve again, I must say thanks, Willis, because we were communicating while they were overseas, then the communication kind of slackened down, that it kind of rocked the activity, but I see the bovell as a musician, so it still came off, and I say thanks again. And Cleve, anything else you could?
No,
that's it? Oh, the radio station?
yeah, if you get
Monty, that guy, Monty, it is Behill, all right. So Behill, all the best. Well, Vincent, I talked to my neighbor, so Kojo is represented. The news. Well, the guy is saying playing quiet there, you know, man. Yeah. Our cameraman, glad to. Island Rebel Media. Thank you, my brother. Salute you and all the other achievements. And again, thanks. Well, we have some water, eh?
And I represent
Ronnie